Hello everyone, I'm Joaquin Gamero and I'm here to talk about the why to inflation. Think about this. If I were to be selling you the first iPhone 13 in the world, how much would you be willing to pay for it? Knowing that historically an iPhone 13 is around $1,000 when it just releases, how much would you be willing to pay for it? 1,200, 1,500, 20,000? Knowing there are a lot of Apple fanboys now here, I know my answer would be very short, but somewhere around there. And now let's say after a day or maybe a week after you bought that iPhone for an elevated price, I were to sell all of the iPhones. I were to release the iPhones for normal price, for retail price. How much would that iPhone be worth now? Knowing that there are a lot of thousands, maybe millions of iPhone 13s around the world. That number will drastically drop the price for you pay with that iPhone. And this is basically the principle of inflation. When you have a lot of something, the initial thing loses value periodically. It's the same thing that happens with money. As more money gets printed by the banks, by the government, your money loses value, and so on. A couple of days ago, I was talking to a friend. We were talking about the economy and future of it, and he mentioned a very important point. He said many people discourage, or he said criticize exactly inflation because they don't really know how it works, why it works, and why it's there. And I said, yeah, of course, I think you're totally right. And it makes sense actually because there's so many ways to escape inflation just by being more savvy with your money. Just like there are a lot of ways. But before I explain to you how we can take advantage of inflation instead of looking at it as the enemy, first I gotta explain the why to inflation. A more in-depth definition. So probably along the way in your life, you have crossed your mind that inflation is wrong. And many people criticize it and say, even there's a famous economist named Milton Friedman who said inflation is taxation without representation. And I somewhat agree with this, but at the same time no, because inflation, what it does basically, it improves the economy by making people spend more money. It promotes people to spend more money. So here, I'll give you an example. So if you have $100, for example, would you rather spend it now or would you rather spend it 10 years later when it's gonna be worth less? It will be worth less than $80 because according to compound interest, and I'm getting too in depth in that. But whatever, you know my point. So would you rather spend your money now or would you rather spend it later, when it's gonna be worth less? That's basically the main principle of how inflation incentivizes you to spend your money. But now there are a lot of other people that ask the same but opposite question. How about the opposite? How about deflation? Where your money will be worth more in the future instead of being worth less in the future. This sounds like a great idea at first until you realize that it's just not the way to go. It's just so bad for the economy. It just shows a sign of a weakening economy. As this is a small positive feedback example that I'm gonna give you. So basically, when the money is worth more in the future, people are gonna hold back themselves from spending it because they know their money is gonna be worth more. They want to save up as most as they can, and they won't spend it in the economy, which definitely lowers the production levels, the spending levels, and everything. And then therefore the companies have to lay off their workers from their companies, because they can't keep the production. They will lower the salaries, and it would just be a whole disaster. So basically inflation just shows signs of a healthy economy obviously control inflation. I'm not saying go ahead and make the dollar worth a penny in next year. That's unfortunately what happened in Venezuela and other countries where communism arrived. All right, so we know deflation is bad, horrible, the worst thing that happened. Inflation is a necessary bad, right? But how about no inflation at all? That sounds like great, right? But now there will be no promote to spend. There will be no promote to sell anything. It would just slow down the economy. It would do nothing to the economy. Like it will never improve. It will never get worse. But in the real world, it's impossible to actually have a zero levels of inflation. It's fairly impossible because always money gets created, or money, or people charge up high prices, lower prices, and it's impossible to have zero inflation. Okay, so now that we know why it happens, we now need to know how to take advantage of it instead of losing our buying power from our dollar. And as many people might already tell, the only way to save your money from losing its value due to inflation is mainly through investing it, putting it in high yield savings accounts where your money will not lose its value, which is honestly the best way to go. There's so many ways to spending nowadays. You can start out with $1, as little as $1. It's honestly insane the amount of ways you can invest. You can invest in the stock market. You can invest in bonds. You can invest in real estate. Even there's some applications. There's some apps that you can invest in real estate without even owning a piece of property. And there's just so many ways to do it. And well, definitely inflation can take away your overall income. If you, let's say, you get paid around $5,000 for a month, for a total of $60K a year, which is a fairly good salary. And if you don't get a raise every year, you're obviously gonna be losing money, right? But after all, if you invest your money, if you keep it growing, you will always come out on top, and you will never lose. Your money will never lose its value, and you will always be on the positive side instead of the negative. And that's the whole informative speech. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.